Hi, welcome to Recap House. Today we're going to recap a film named Big Brother. It was realized in 2018. The movie star is a previous trooper, Henry, who is enrolled for his hardest mission yet, showing a class of high schooler reprobates. As he kicks his direction into their school and home lives, obviously his flighty showing style may be exactly what they need. At the start of the film, Henry has gotten back to Hong Kong in the wake of serving in the US military for a really long time. Hoping to begin a vocation as an educator, he goes to his previous school, Tak Chi Optional. The chief notes that he doesn't have insight in educating. Be that as it may, subsequent to being shown a suggestion letter from a higher authority, he is given the work. Before Henry leaves, the chief informs him that the class he is allocated to educate is the most awful one of their schools. The morning of his most memorable day at school, Henry strolls into the class to see that it is an outright mayhem. A few understudies are dozing, others are singing, some are playing computer games, while a lot of them are cooking ramen in a compact oven. Indeed, even after the educator strolls in, they totally overlook him and proceed with what they are doing. Henry attempts to stand out, yet they profess to not hear him. He offers up attempting to redirect their consideration and circumvents the homeroom, remarking on the things they are as of now doing. The understudies who are cooking are approached to eat less ramen on the grounds that it contains an excess of sodium. Henry then moves toward a person named Zufa playing ukulele and assists him with it. Essentially, he cautions a gamer youngster against the radiation he could get from gazing at the screen day in and day out. At the point when the understudies at long last begin paying attention to him, he presents himself and composes his name and telephone number on the board. The understudies chuckle since his penmanship is appalling. Then, at that point, somebody from the understudies calls him and requests that he leave the class, yet Henry ignores it. The children overlook him once more and go on with the exercises they were doing before his appearance. Having enough of it, Henry utilizes an elastic band and chalk to set off the fire sprinkler in the room. The understudies immediately spread out to hold themselves back from getting wet. He at last stands out enough to be noticed and authoritatively invites them to his group. After class, a gathering of 5 least positioning understudies assembles in the game's supply space to smoke. The head of the gathering, Jack, has a keen interest in A-grade understudy from another class. The others find him gazing at her image and ridicule him. The gathering has a contention with the rich and ruined kids from the school's b-ball group. They go into the stockroom and counterfeit Jack as expected in light of the fact that he is poor. Afterward, the ball group is rehearsing while Jack and the gathering watch them from neighboring. Jack drops a jug to the court, which makes the group chief fall. The gathering snickers, however, is given detention by the school's English instructor, Miss Leon. To stay away from confinement, they pull a trick on her and take off when she is in the middle of cleaning her work area. Somewhere else, the school's chief is upset in light of the fact that the training board is wanting to deduct 1/5 of their yearly subsidizing. Individuals from the board come to take a visit through the school to examine where the assets are being utilized. Simultaneously, Henry enters the homeroom where the understudies have set up a pail of water to trick him. Be that as it may, his reflexes work quicker than the falling container and he can drive it away. The understudies who had been holding on to ridicule him are left stunned. Henry requests Jack's parcel of cigarettes, realizing that he smokes. Jack basically gives him the pack, inquisitive with regards to what he is going to do. Then Henry requests that Zufa name the 3 fixings that are in a cigarette. At the point when he responds to the inquiry accurately, he is let to play hooky for the afternoon. Everybody begins to beat on their work areas, requesting that they ought to get to play hooky also. At the point when they stop, he gives them each a cigarette and requests that they investigate it. That's what Henry knows. Whether he essentially makes reference with the impact it has on their well-being, they won't view it in a serious way. So all things considered, he gets some information about the results of smoking cigarettes and makes sense of how tar structures in their lungs. Interestingly, they focus on the educator and are really keen on learning. After the chime rings, he requests that they return the cigarettes, and the understudies hesitantly concur. That day in the cafeteria, the chief of the ball group makes one of Jack's companions, Bruce, stumble on his leg. This leads to a contention between the gatherings, which before long transforms into a battle. They toss food and tables at one another, annihilating the spot. Afterward, Henry is educated that 5 understudies from his group have been briefly suspended for beginning the battle. Henry finds Jack battling his rival in the foyer and stops them. On being approached to quiet down, Jack blames the school for being uncalled for in light of the fact that the rich children get no discipline. That day after school, Henry goes through the documents of each of the 5 understudies to figure out additional about them. The principal fellow is named Zufa, the child of a Pakistani settler who is constantly oppressed as a result of his race. He is many times blamed for taking by the police officers in his area. Zufa's just desire in his life is to turn into a performer. The subsequent understudy is a young lady named Denon. She was a failure to her dad since her introduction to the world, since he generally needed a son. Her whole life, Denon has been attempting to acquire her dad's regard. She even trimmed her hair to a more limited length and played with toy vehicles to profess to be a boy. However, her dad couldn't care less about her while he deals with her more youthful sibling like a sovereign. Then there are siblings named Bruce and Chris. Their mom took off with a man when they were just children, which transformed their dad into a drunkard. The siblings just had each other to depend on while growing up. Bruce became fixated on computer games to get away from reality, while Chris buckled down in a supermarket to bring in cash for the family. Finally, Henry can find no data about Jack's family foundation. In the accompanying scene, we see Jack working at a cafe as a server. MMA bettor Dianying shows up at the cafe with his colleagues. When Dianying isn't looking, Jack takes his extravagant lighter however he gets. Dianying's men beat him up as he really looks at Jack's ID. In the wake of figuring out that he is an understudy, he gives him a little cash and offers him a task as their food conveyance man. Elsewhere, Henry visits Zufa's home and finds him taking off from his dad and his partners subsequent to taking a ticket. He helps him at first, however, subsequent to figuring out why he is being pursued, he agrees with the dad's position. Then, at that point, he and Zufa come to hang out at the scaffold. To rouse Zufa into doing anything he desires, Henry sings with a band acting in the roads. Seconds after the fact, Zufa goes along with him and sings before individuals, interestingly subsequent to being harassed at school quite a while back. In the meantime, Bruce and Chris' dad gets back home late like generally and orders them to present to him a brew from the store. At the point when the siblings reject, he hollers at them to escape his home. The following day, Henry meets with their dad and persuades him to get help for his children's prosperity. Meanwhile, Denon's dad brings her a pack of cosmetics items and requests that she carry on like a young lady for once. Denon is incensed at him for continuously causing her to feel like she isn't adequate. She puts on the cosmetics on her more youthful sibling and escapes the house with the vehicle key. She is going to drive away in her dad's vehicle, yet is come by Henry at the right second. He tells her that driving without a permit is unlawful and proposes another option. Following that, they go to a go-kart race track. Henry likewise welcomes her dad and makes them race. The dad and girl go for the kill quickly and without hesitation to one another during the race and ultimately end up outside the track. Out of nowhere, Denon's go-kart is hit by a vehicle, however she figures out how to evade it. Ignorant about this, her dad cries, grieving his little girl's demise. Denon understands that he truly does, as a matter of fact, love her and embraces him. The following day at school, Bruce and Chris, alongside a gathering, are shipped off to a restoration community to meet with a recuperating alcoholic. They are astonished to see that the individual they need to talk with is their dad. The understudies ask him how he began to drink. The man answers that he cherished his significant other profoundly, however she left him at the absolute bottom of his life. Subsequently, he began to drink and failed to remember that he had 2 children to deal with. The man doesn't uncover that Bruce and Chris are his children, yet apologizes to them. Toward its finish, the siblings are left crying. Elsewhere, Jack has begun to work for the MMA bettor Jianying. He offers Jack a truckload of cash to medicate a Warriors beverage in the following game. Jack is hesitant, however, is constrained into tolerating the proposition. Upon the arrival of the battle, Jianying supports a warrior, however wagers cash on his misfortune. Jack puts drugs on the warrior's beverage, yet is gotten at the same time. Before he can fault Jianying, he is thumped and locked inside a storage room. Sometime later, Henry shows up there and inquires as to whether they have seen his understudy. The men request that he get back, however Jack, from inside the storage, shouts for help. Subsequent to figuring out he is being caught, Henry assaults them and overwhelms them without any problem. At the point when the contenders step it gets a piece serious, however Henry evades their assaults effectively. Toward its end, he takes out their best warrior, who should contend shortly. In the accompanying scene, they are at the medical clinic where Henry gets treated for his injuries. Jack attempts to uncover reality with regards to Jianying, yet is made to quiet down. The news comes to the TV and Henry begins being known as the one who beat up an expert contender to save his understudy. His prominence in school develops and the understudies begin to regard him. They even outfit to invite him to the class rather than how they were before. A flashback shows us that Henry used to be a trickster when he was in school. He even tossed water inflatables at an understudy who was playing piano for his folks on occasion. Afterward, he battled a similar understudy and broke his hand. He was suspended for the battle, after which he needed to travel to the States. Beginning that day, the understudies focus when Henry shows in class and concentrate hard for the impending school entrance test. Everybody is doing perfect, with the exception of Bruce, who has become dependent on pills. It would seem while Chris went to video games to keep away from his family's concern, Bruce began taking medications. Since he is unfocused, he does severely in the false entry test. Henry vows to help him, however Bruce develops more discouraged with time. Ultimately, he leaps off the gallery of their home. He is raced to the medical clinic and goes into a state of unconsciousness. The media curves the news and faults it on the school and Henry for what Bruce did. The authorities from the training board interview Henry and choose to disavow his educational permit. At the point when he packs his things and leaves the school, the understudies pursue him behind, requesting that he stay. They are crushed by his non-appearance, yet they realize that they ought to experience their impending test to do right by him. From that day, they concentrate on 2 times as difficult to demonstrate to the load-up that Henry is a decent educator. Upon the arrival of the test, Jack, alongside the entirety of his cohorts, gets a text from Henry requesting that they meet in the school an hour prior to the test. At the point when the understudies assemble, they figure out that it was Jianying's stunt to keep them bound in the school so they won't come to the assessment lobby in time. He is doing this to show Henry a thing or two. Sometime later, Henry shows up at school and looks into Jianying's arrangement. He allows the understudies to free and battles Jianying's kin to prevent them from hurting the youngsters. They escape and immediately advance toward the assessment lobby while Henry battles Jianying. While they are battling one-on-one, Jianying discovers that he was the person who Henry had tossed water inflatables with when he was nearly nothing. It would seem since Henry broke his arm, he couldn't contend in a major music rivalry. Since the episode, he hasn't contacted a piano and faults Henry for destroying his fantasy. Henry attempts to prevail upon him, however, is gone after once more. They battle to snag a blade. Finally, Henry gets a pursuit to kill him, however doesn't do it. He requests mercy for what he did when he was close to nothing and leaves. The understudies arrive at the assessment lobby with flawless timing and complete the test. Sliced a half a month after the fact, they all breeze through without a hitch. Jianying begins to play the piano once more, however has a ton to rehearse before he gets as great as he used to be. Bruce recuperates rapidly and vows to go to the following year's entry test. The chief is likewise happy in light of the fact that the board chooses to give them a 20% reward store in light of the fact that their understudies did very well in the entry test. Henry gets back to educating and does the fire sprinkle stunt on one more clump of understudies. Much thanks for watching. If you have liked this video, subscribe and do give it a thumbs up.